A little while ago I started a project, embroidered postcards of places that were important to me. So places where I've lived or places where family lived. And the first postcard was a personalised map of where I went to university in Wales, which I think turned out quite well. Just basic sort of lines and a bit of watercolour. And then the postcard was printed on the back. And I thought it's time to get back to this project. So I've done a very simple outline of a signal box, which is sort of a landmark of my local area where I live at the moment. And I'm going to just do it in black, probably 2 strands and maybe split stitch. It is sort of based next to a railway and shops and all sorts of things, but I've just sort of singled out the signal box. And then I think I will add a little bit of colour, so a little bit of blue sky, maybe some flowers around the window, maybe a little bit of brickwork as well. Give it a little bit more detail. But this one is just going to be a really simple one. Don't use split stitch that much, so I thought I'd give it a bit of a go. Recently been using quite a lot of stem stitch, which is also nice. I want to sort of perfect some of my stitches a little bit more, so we're going to practice the split stitch. And I tend to do split back stitch rather than split front stitch. I'm just literally going to outline the building. I think when you're doing buildings, you don't necessarily want to fill in every single detail like in satin stitch or something. I think you can really get the basics and get the idea of a building, get a recognisable building just using an outline. And then you can add different colours with watercolour, or you could just add a flash of colour like a red post box or a bus going by if you're in London. And that can make it really pop just using one splash of colour. This is the red and white signal, so I might use just a little bit of red on there as well, just to make it a little bit brighter. You could watercolour first. If you've used a water erasable pen though, you might find that a bit of a problem. It might smudge or it might disappear completely. I'm going to cover my lines. This is actually a carbon transferred image. Took a photo. I was trying to get a side view, but I couldn't get the perspective right, so I've just taken a front on photo and then transferred it with carbon paper to make my image. Really simple way of doing it is so I've done an outline of the first brickwork. This is all brickwork. This is actually sort of white wood cladding. I'm now going to switch to just a single black line to do a little bit more detail. I think the signpost will actually be single, and I do want to bring out a little bit of brickwork. You can tell it's taking shape. Just done a tiny bit of brickwork, which I'm quite pleased with. This looks slightly messy. It was meant to have like a black bit here, but these are so close together you can't really make them out. I am going to add some red every other one. Let's have a look. So that one, that one, that one, and that one. So hopefully that might tidy that little area up a little bit. It still looks quite chunky, even using one strand. So you might even want to go even thinner and use some machine sewing cotton. I sometimes do that if I want a really fine look, like a pencil. So we're just going to do one strand of red. Then we will finish doing the outline of the building, and we can do a little bit of watercolor. I'm going to be very nervous about doing the watercolor because you don't want to ruin the bit of embroidery that you've just done. But I am sort of wanting to experiment a little bit, and I used some on my map and I thought the effect was quite good. It was just a very pale bit of colour, but it added some interest to the picture. Try not to go over the black. I think I will have to do that black line again there. I think that's okay for one square. So this is a sign that faces the oncoming traffic to warn them that there's a pedestrian crossing of the tracks. Just if you're in a different country to the UK, I don't know what systems you have in place. Probably something very similar. And it's kind of a box with red and white outline. And now I'm going to finish the top part, and then we will try a little bit of watercolour. I've just got a basic set of watercolours, there's nothing fancy here. We've got 3 browns that look very similar, so I'll be using some browns on the brickwork and a little bit of blue sky. I would like to maybe get a little bit of colour in, but there's no obvious place for it. And actually it might clash with the red, so maybe I'll just do blue, brown, and then maybe something on the floor to sort of tie in with the picture. There we go. I think that looks really cute. You could just leave it like that. It's a black and white image with a tiny touch of red, and I think that looks nice. But I'm gonna just try and add a little bit of colour. So I've got a really thin brush and some water and my colours. Now people do tend to recommend completely wetting your fabric, but I don't want to do the whole thing. I just want to do a tiny, very specific bit, so I'm not going to wet the whole fabric. I'm not going to make it too wet either, because then there's a real risk of it just seeping out under the lines. But I've got a dark grey here. I'm just going to do this sign in to make it a little bit different from the brickwork, which is going to be a brown. Got a scrap bit of paper here. It will look different than on the fabric, but it's just giving me a rough idea of what colour it's going to turn out like. So I think That definitely looks like two separate things now. Something in front of the bricks, which is what I needed to happen. Alright, with the blue, I almost want to just create a very light blue wash. So I'm going to just add my paint actually to my water. See if we can just get blue water to sort of swish, just going off into the fabric. Okay, let's see. Looks a bit grey at the moment, so I just want to add more blue. Let's try a little bit. You can see some blue coming through, and it may actually be enough. I'm going to bring it down slightly. Then I need to think of maybe a bit more grey here, just to represent the pavement and rails and stuff. Do the bigger brush. Chose a small brush for the detail. Now I could do with a bigger brush. Effect. Slightly grey, cloudy London day would also work there, so we will see. Just need a little bit of colour on here. Right, I'm going to let that dry. This is pretty much finished, I think. I did very light blue wash, but I think it's just enough to lift the background. A little bit of sort of a dirty floor and a bit of brickwork. A little pop of colour there. And that's done. I've printed the postcard on the back. I'm going to write home is where the heart is, because this is where I'm living at the moment, so this is home. And that is another one for my little book of postcards, which I haven't done a lot of work on this year yet, but I've got some more ideas to carry on with this project.